All right, guys. I'm doing another video at 8:43 p.m. It is January 16th, 2017. And I actually just got done a conclusive investigation, is what you could call it, on Negroland. Now, if you guys don't know anything about that, I will give you a briefing on what this is in about like 2 minutes. But I actually have known about this place for about a year and a half. I heard about it about last year from a pastor who is very prominent now, or at least that video he posted on Negroland has a lot of views. Pastor Stephen Darby of Destined Ministries. He holds to the position that Negroland is or was a real geographical location in Africa, or the legend goes that Negroland was Africa before the name was changed by Europeans. So I actually did 2 to 3 hours of digging into this, and not just today, but I've been looking into this for a whole week, and I've just concluded my investigation on this myself. And when I say investigation, I really do mean I actually went into this and I did academic research into this specific topic. I'll show you guys my sources. I'll show you guys the libraries and the databases and resources that I used when I was looking into this legend. And I'm going to explain to you why it is either a myth or it's a fact. But as you know, as I just said, Negroland is this supposed place that existed where we would call Africa today. So the legend goes that uh, was Negroland before it was Africa. Europeans came over to Africa, enslaved black people, and called the geographical place Africa, and the people in it Africans. And the legend goes even deeper than this, or the conspiracy goes deeper than this, and it says that uh, the people who are in Negroland are the actual Jews, and the Jews that we know today to be the Jews, to be the Hebrew people, uh, who their lineage traces back to the genealogy of the Israelites in the Bible. Those Jews are not the actual Jews, supposedly. The Jews who are the Jews are the black people today. And this is all hinging on the fact or the belief or the theory that all black people or most black people are descendants from this geographical place called Negroland. So I did some studying on this on myself, because if I'm from Negroland, I want to know. If I'm a Hebrew, I want to know. And I'll let you guys know what my conclusion was on this investigation when I get done just giving you a briefing on what I looked through. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And this right here is one of the first things that came up. Search for truth on what is, where was, and is there any evidence for this Negroland. Share my screen in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this right here is a wiki link. This is one of the first things that popped up on Wikipedia. And even though Wikipedia is not one of the most credible sources to get your information, it's a good place to at least start out. And then you can just cross-reference to see if there's any corroborating evidence to match what you found on Wikipedia from a more credible scholarly source. And so that's what I did. This wiki link says that Negroland, or Nigritia, was an archaic term in European mapping describing the inland and finally explored region in West Africa as an area populated with Negro people. Then it goes on and it says, as a matter of fact, let me do a search on the page. There you go. It says basically the term is probably a direct translation of the Arabic term. I'm not even going to try and pronounce what this is. It's Balad al Sudan, right? Balad al Sudan, meaning land of the blacks, corresponding to about the same area. There were various kinds of people in the area, including the Jews of Balad al Sudan, some of the greatest states of those considered part of Negroland, where the Bamul, is it an R? I can't really see because it's dark in here, out Borno Empire, and the Sokoto, what is this? The Sokoto Caliphate. I'm pronouncing weird words every day. So that's a little bit of information of what I got from Wikipedia on what Negroland was. So I searched on Google, I searched on Bing, I searched on the usual search engines to see if I could pull up any information on Negroland. There was none. So I went 3 steps farther than that, and I actually went to a college database, JSTOR. You can go to JSTOR or any other college database, and you can find the information you're looking for on whatever it is you want to seek and find. And another claim is, the Middle East wasn't always the Middle East, or at least Asia, because we consider the Middle East to be Asian, and that claim is sort of true. So before I even go into like Negroland, this is what this, which is actually a book that records Middle Eastern history, right? Uh, this talks about Captain Mahan, General Gordon, and the origins of the term Middle East. And if I go over here to like the details, I think I got over there. Uh, but this academic person right here, Clayton R. Copes, he actually is a real geographer, and this is his writings on Middle Eastern studies. And he says one of the paradoxes of the Middle East is the origin of its very name. Although the Middle East has its own long and distinct history, the term by which it is known today originated barely 70 years ago, and not in the region itself, but in Europe. The distinction, the designation Middle East arose from the imperatives of late 19th century strategy and diplomacy, which needed a name for the region between the Near East, based on Turkey, and the Far East, based on China. Both Middle East and Near East reflected a Europe centered view of the world, in which the strongest powers politically, economically, militarily, and perhaps to a lesser extent, culturally were European or oriented. And I actually have, let me see. Yeah, Business Insider. Business Insider is also a really credible source that you guys can go to. But I have an article from Business Insider where he said, yeah, we should stop calling the Middle East the Middle East. And he gives the reason all the way at the bottom. If I go down to the bottom of this article, and he says, personally, I'm trying to use the term West Asia in everything I write. Although old habits break hard, I might rarely use the old term. What we hope is that Arab companies, organizations, media, and others that are based on West Asia is to start refusing the term Middle East and use West Asia. So that's just my studies on that. So yeah, it is true. The Middle East wasn't always considered the Middle East, but it was considered Asia. Always has, always will be. And so basically, when looking into Negroland or Land of the Blacks, this is one guy who came up, and let me see if I have anything right here. There you go. I typed in Land of the Blacks on JSTOR to see what I could find, because Negroland didn't come up on here. So I typed in Land of the Blacks, and this was my search results for Land of the Blacks, and it directed me to this book, Approaching African History. So I went, tried and find out, where can I get this book? Is it online? And I actually was able to pull this book up through Google Books. So I pull up this book, Approaching Africa, because it mentions the name Land of the Blacks in here, going farther and farther down the rabbit hole. And if you go to page 162 of Approaching Africa in this book, this guy actually says right here, he says, translated by Lepzian and Hopkins in their corpus of early Arabic sources for West African history, It is these accounts which, on the one hand, demonstrate the growth of knowledge of this land of the blacks on the part of the Islamic world, and on the other have been the starting point of modern historiography ever since W.D. Cooley published The Negroland of the Arabs in 1841. So then I had to find out who was W.D. Cooley, if this all traces back to this guy and this publication he made in The Negroland of the Arabs. So I went and I searched up for W.D. Cooley, and his actual name is William Desborough Cooley. And this wiki article says that William Desborough Cooley was an Irish geographer. Discoveries by European explorers gradually show that a number of his theories about Central Africa, though strongly held, were incorrect. And this right here is his book that he actually wrote, The Negroland of the Arabs Examined. And right off of page 1, you see this term Negroland. So this wiki link says, yeah, he was a real person. He was a real guy. He came up with a lot of theories about Central Africa. And as time progressed, it showed that his theories were not credible. So Negroland actually can be traced back to this guy, William Desborough Cooley, or W.D. Cooley. He's the guy who came up with the theory of Negroland, or at least it can be traced back to him. Where it originally came from, we might not know. But as far as I can tell from my research, it can be traced all the way back to this guy and his publication, his book that he wrote in 1841. So if Negroland comes from this guy, right? As a matter of fact, let me show you the mapping or the geographical location in Negroland. So I did some more investigating, and this guy, David Rumsey, he is an American map collector, and he's the founder of the David Rumsey Map Collection of Cartography Associates. And then you go down and you can see his different awards. He has all these different awards for like his scholarly work. So he is a well-educated and awarded man, and he just collects maps. So I want his website, and you can see the 3 different maps of Negroland, but there isn't any written documentation or any history to go behind, who. Well, we know who drew the maps. We can trace back who drew the maps, but there really isn't any real like history behind it. No documentation or anything. These are just like written drawings, and so if you go and you try and find any history on Negroland besides Wikipedia, you don't find anything on the history of Negroland. They don't have any documentation, no history, no reports or anything on Negroland. It doesn't come up anywhere else in history except for in this guy W.D. Cooley's books and these maps. That's it. That's all you find. So this is a book I have bought up. But also, so if that's the case, if Africa, right, was always Africa, which I want to show you in my studies, as a matter of fact, what I came to the conclusion on Africa, and was it its original name, or was Africa named Africa by some white guy or whatever? So it's a travel site where you can go to about Africa. Say you're about to go travel to Africa and you want to find out some quick facts. This is a good place to go. Go to the travel website. Like if you guys want to go to Pennsylvania or New York or Boston, you go to the travel website and it'll give you the information you need to know about those places. So this right here, this article says that the BBC posted a very interesting feature on mapping Africa and how you can trace the history of Africa by studying maps dating as far back as the 14th century. And if anyone was interested in how Africa got its name, it appears that the continent was named after a group of Tunisian Berbers, the Afri, or who lived near Carthage and traded with the Romans. And so, behold, the Romans called it Afri Terra, the land of the Afri, which became Africa. There are several other theories as to how Africa got its name, but this one seems to hold the most water. Now, one of the legends or the myths is that Africa got its name from this guy. And this is actually one of the most legitimate sites I will show you guys. This is Encyclopedia Britannica, Oxford University, and if I'm right, Cambridge University. They actually use this encyclopedia as a credible source for their students. The students are allowed to use Encyclopedia Britannica, and the professors use it as a reference or a source to give to the students. So Encyclopedia Britannica says Scipio Africanus the Elder, Latin Scipio Africanus Major. In full, his name was Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. And it does talk about him being a Roman general. So this guy was a Roman general, and he's noted for his victory over the Carthaginian. I will never be able to get these word names right. The Carthaginian leader Hannibal in the Great Battle of Zama, 202 BCE, ending in the Second Punic War. For his victory, he won the surname Africanus. So Africanus was his nickname for his victory he won over Hannibal. Now, the legend goes that supposedly, right, Africa is named after Scipio Africanus. Well, that's not the case. As a matter of fact, there's another source right here. And it's loading, it's loading, it's loading. Okay, because I lost my spot before. Here we go. So this source, it says, New Age Negroes will falsely tell you that Africa got its name from the Romans. That is a lie, and I have proven this many times. The people spreading this lie do not know history, and some of them do not do know the truth, but choose to spread lies. Africa is not a European word, like I just showed you guys, and is not named after the Romans, was not named after the Roman whose name was Cornelius. There are multiple ancient African sources for the word Africa, including the Berber word Ifri. So I'm not really going to get into all of that, but it goes and it does correspond with my Encyclopedia Britannica source, which is one of the most credible sources on the web. It says that the Roman general who defeated Hannibal was named Publius Cornelius Scipio. He was best known for defeating Hannibal at the final battle of the Second Punic War, a feat that earned him the agnomen title or nickname Africanus. Scipio was also called by the nickname the Roman Hannibal. He was called Africanus because he defeated the greatest African general of all time. Rome did not create the name Africa, and anyone who claims they did is mistaken or purposely a liar, a phony, or a fraud. Bottom line, Africa is not named after any Romans. The Romans named themselves after us. And this guy being an African. Moving on into more scholarly research and etc. So that brings in the question about, Egyptians and stuff like that. I did do some more research into Egypt. Let me see. Here we go. So this source says Egypt was considered part of Asia by the ancients and first assigned to Africa by the geographer Ptolemy, who accepted Alexandria as prime meridian and made the Isthmus of Suez and the Red Sea the boundary between Asia and Africa. As Europeans came to understand the real extent of the continent, the idea of Africa expanded with their knowledge. And so this source is saying that Egypt was considered part of Asia and then it became part of Africa later. Are there any credible sources for this? Well, I went and I did some more digging, and the New York Times actually has an article on this. Let me see. Here we go. So right here it says scholars thus, well, let me start with the beginning. As geographical knowledge increased and as the authority of the Greeks diminished and the architecture of global geography underwent more pseudo transformations as well, if continents were to be meaningful geographical divisions of human geography rather than mere reflections of an ordained cosmic plan, the Nile and the Don obviously formed inappropriate boundaries. Scholars thus gradually came to select the Red Sea and the Gulf and Isthmus of Suez as the African Asian divide. Similarly, by the 16th century, geographers began to realize that Europe and Asia were not separated by a narrow isthmus, that the Don River did not originate anywhere near the Arctic Sea, and that the Sea of Azov was smaller than that had been previously imagined. While the old view was remarkably persistent, a new boundary for those two continents was eventually required as well. Then, if you go to infoplease.com, which actually is a resource that is ran by all scholars, and you actually need to have you need to basically be voted into this community. They write and they say Asia's border with Europe, which geographically may be regarded as regarded as a peninsula of the Eurasian landmass, lies approximately along the the Urals, the Oral River, the Caspian Sea, the Caucasus, the Black Sea, the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits, and the Aegean Sea. The connection of Asia with Africa is broken only by the Suez Canal between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. In the far northeast of Asia, Siberia is separated from North America by the Bering Strait. The continent of Asia is washed on the east by the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. So basically, this is confirming what this other source said, where was considered Asian, and up until this guy, who he actually was a real geographer, Ptolemy, he first assigned Egypt to Africa. So we can still consider Egypt to be a part of Asia, but one thing is for sure, for people who are saying that Egypt and Africa, or Egypt is Egypt is not Israel, and Israel is not Africa. If I'm right, Israel and Egypt are about 300 miles apart. Let me Google that. How far is Egypt from Israel? Yeah, that's 300 miles. Distance from Egypt to Israel is 612 kilometers. This air travel distance is equal to 380 miles. Israel is not in Egypt, and Egypt is not in Israel, but Egypt is in Africa. And Israel is what we consider to be West Asian, or the new name, the Middle East. And so just doing some scholarly research and some academic study, it puts all of this to rest. Negroland, myth or fact, it is a complete myth. It is a legend, a folk tale. It is not true. It is not credible. You cannot find any information on this place at all from a credible, scholarly, peer-reviewed source. And I wish you luck to everybody who still choose to place your hope and faith in this legend that Negroland was an actual place. It was not. I traced it back to the guy W.D. Cooley, who traced it back, or who got that idea from God knows who, and it just is not real. So with that being said, um, I really do wish and hope to the people who believe this stuff, to people who have unfortunately placed their hopes and dreams in somebody who may have told them about this, like maybe that pastor who I told you guys about, Doctor or Pastor Stephen Darby. I know the guy Ray Higgins is good for telling these folks tales. Just doing some academic studying and scholarly research from college libraries or encyclopedias. You can't find information on any of this stuff anywhere at all. And I hope I showcase that. So share this video around, like, comment below, and get the video out there to all of the Hotep and Kemets and Black Hebrew Israelites that there is no credible information on Negroland. And I challenge you to give me a scholarly, credible source. I want some historical documents. I want archaeological findings of Negroland. I mean, is this, is there like an inscription where Negroland is engraved in, or any of that? You don't find any history on this place at all, not a inch. But what I will say, for the people who are promoting this falsehood, a lot of people who are giving out this information, they don't know that this stuff isn't necessarily true because they haven't researched this for themselves. They don't know how to properly research. They don't know how to go out and get the tools and find it so they can come to the right conclusions. So people like me and people like Michael Heiser or James White and other scholars, it's up to us to do the research for them and post it on places like YouTube and Facebook and etc. to get this information out. And what I will say is a lot of this was done, or a lot of these myths come up because it is true that people still have hidden racism in their hearts. And so one of the biggest things I see in Black people is that we keep on blaming the white man for everything. The white man, the white man, the white man, the white man, the white man. Like I showed before, it was actually Muslims who first enslaved Africans about 14 centuries ago. And actually, it was Muslims who taught Europeans how to slave trade. And actually, Africa at first, Ethiopia was one of the first Christian nations, an African nation. So where these people are getting their information from, I don't know. But I know all of this is done in an attempt to prove that Black people are the Hebrews, which is not correct. Black people are not Hebrews. Black people have their origin in Africa, and Hebrews have their origin in Israel. They are not in the same place. They are about 300 miles apart, always have, always will be. And as a matter of fact, the Israelites or the Hebrews, they're actually considered to be Asian. They're not the same place. They are not. And we need to go and do our due diligence of looking into this stuff and investigating these claims to see if they hold any water. But one of the main things I do want to leave this video off saying is that whether God is white or black, which actually, if you did your studying, Jesus being from the Middle East would actually be Asian. He wouldn't be a white man or a black man. Both of you guys are actually wrong. Jesus would almost look similar to an Indian man or an Arab man. And lastly, let me just leave off with this. I think this is the most important message of all. I deal with the evolutionary creationism message that God used the natural process of biological evolution via common descent so that he could enter into the system or have a divine incarnation into the body of what we know today as the person of Jesus Christ. And so through common ancestry, through evolution, Jesus was related to not just Adam and Eve, but Jesus was related to the entire human race, all biological living organisms, and we even have our origins in the stars. And so it's not that Black people are related to Christ and we have lineage with Christ. But because evolution is true, not only are black people related to Christ because Christ was a human, but we all are related to Christ, and we all are related to the entire cosmos because we all have the same elements inside of us that all come from the stars. We are, in essence, what Carl Sagan said, we are a way for the universe to know itself. And that's a whole lot deeper than this Black Hebrew Israelite stuff or this Kemet stuff or black people being the chosen race and so being the chosen race. We all are chosen because we all are related via evolution. We all are descendant from a common ancestor. And that common ancestor had a common ancestor. We all share common descent. And not only do we share common descent, but because we all share common descent, we all share a common creator. That is the best message I think anybody could ever hear. And that is the message that we as Christians, we as believers in Jesus Christ need to spread around. All right, guys. Until next time, good luck and good night.